Welcome everybody to our first live chat of the ICA Best Cities Incredible Impacts Awards. Before we go into our chat with our guest today, I just wanted to give you a little bit of information on the ICA Best Cities Incredible Impacts program. It was a program we started about 4 years ago, and we wanted to recognize and celebrate those associations who have left a permanent legacy in their destinations where they have met. And over the past years, we've had really great examples. And this year's winners have been announced last week during the launch of the ICA Congress. And they are BCIT Eco City Builders from Canada, International Society for Microbial Ecology from the Netherlands, and Seroptimist International from United Kingdom. Congrats to them, and we will be hearing their presentations during the ICA Congress. This year has been an extraordinary year, and we wanted not only to recognize the 3 winners, but we also wanted to hear from each of the submissions who have applied this year with us. We had a record number, and these live chats are really a great opportunity to celebrate each and every one of them. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our guest today, Mathieu Langelier from the International Actuarial Association. Mathieu, would you just, before we get started about your legacy program, introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about your association?
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for having me. And before we start, congratulations to the winners. I know this is an exciting program, and we are very happy to be part of it, and very happy to have the opportunity to talk to this group today. So I'm Mathieu Langelier. I'm the Executive Director of the International Actuarial Association, live from Ottawa, Canada this morning. A little rainy day, so hopefully my image is not too dark, but it's the start of the fall season here. The colors are absolutely beautiful, so anybody who's hesitating into coming to Canada in the fall, it's absolutely beautiful time. In next future years, I strongly recommend it. Our association is of course, as it says, an international association. We are representing the local association of actuaries. So we have about 100 members, and most of our members are from one country specific and are representing the local actuaries there. And a lot of what we do is, of course, standards. We talk and then we make sure to help our associations in terms of education, in terms of training. And a lot of that requires meetings. And we have, like many associations, a lot of committees that are helping to work. As I said, education standards. Of course, we have all the standard governance committees that most associations have. And we tend to get together for some of those activities, being a worldwide body with members in more than 115 countries. We actually work across 19 time zones as well.
So you know all about the difficulty of getting a good mix of the time and balance with time zones, like we are doing with our own Congress. It's been quite a challenge, I have to tell you that. This year has been a little bit different though, and your submission was a little bit different. It wasn't happening in one destination. Can you let us a little bit more know about how you have transitioned with your meeting this year?
Yes, and I think it's I mean, we are an association that we don't stand above the crowd in terms of our amazing new things that we roll out. Like, we face the same challenges as thousands of other associations, being an association that we are international. We have events across the globe on a yearly basis. And of course, 2020 being the year that it has been so far, we've had to really adapt ourselves. And one of the things that we have realized is that, of course, like many associations, we have gone into a virtual format. So our association has adopted Zoom as our platform of choice. And we have, of course, modified our IT. We have modified our website. We have rolled out engagement tools to be able to get our volunteers, because we are a volunteer-driven organizations. We want to make sure that even if they cannot see us face-to-face, that they can still have an interaction with us and still have engagement with us, which is, of course, a huge challenge challenge for most associations dealing in the virtual world. And having events across the globe, we really had to change the way that we operate and the way that we organize our events, and such as you are seeing on a day-to-day basis. We've had, instead of having, flying 100, 200 people in one room, in one country or one specific town or one specific venue, now we do these meetings over Zoom. So there's a lot of adaptation that we had to do. And I can start off, if you want, a little bit in terms of our legacy program. And it's a nice term, because when we actually wrote our submission, it's been many months now, we didn't really think it was going to be a legacy, because we were still thinking that, maybe this is just a 6-month type of thing, maybe it's going to change. But now, as these things roll further on, and of course, if you've read the news, Canada is just starting the second wave of the pandemic, and we're heading into a new lockdown. So we are really looking at things quite differently and saying, yeah, you know what, some of the things that we have done are probably going to be there to stay now, which means for us, for example, instead of bringing the entire world one meeting, and trying, as we had done originally, to just say, you know what, we're going to take our old agenda and just putting in a virtual format is going to work fine. Well, that does work fine, but it is quite limited. 19 time zones means that someone is going to be on that meeting at 4 a.m., getting up at 3 a.m. for those meetings. That is never easy. And of course, we have our friends in Australia or even New Zealand that are going to be in that same meeting at 11 p.m. or midnight. Quite tough to be able to get, especially volunteers, to be extremely, motivated and having read that deck of papers before. So a lot of the things that we have done is we have split our events. So instead of having a full 2 or 3 day events, we actually split it over many weeks, and we break it down into usually 90 minutes or 2-hour sessions at a maximum. And we try as much as possible to have as well regional events. So if we're going to have a topic of discussion that is going to be more towards Asia, well, that just means that one people in our staff is going to be up in the middle of the night to be able to assist a live meeting that is going to be at a decent hour for our folks in Asia. And what we have done as well in modifying the way that we organize our work is we have really pushed ourselves and our volunteers as well to send a lot of documentation in advance. And we're really trying to move away from, those big PDF decks of 50 pages, and we're trying to make it more interactive. A little bit in terms of, we don't want to do necessarily TED Talks, but we really try to limit interventions about 5-10 minutes each presenter. We really try to make sure they're going to have short slide decks. We really try to make sure as well to move or front load a lot of those discussions, if possible, in our blog or our discussion board, where the individuals can start to have those discussions. And it's not always something that is top of mind, but we really have to challenge ourselves constantly to thinking, some of our volunteers are here, they are participating in some of these meetings, but for them, English is the 3rd or 4th or even 5th language. So we really have to give our volunteers the tools for them to be able to excel in this new virtual environment.
Thank you so much, Mathieu. You actually already preempted some of my questions about what innovative elements you have put into your meeting this year. But one thing that really strikes me, you mentioned that you are changing and have actually shifted some of the ways you think and operate to the future, and some things are here to stay. Does that mean that in future you are not thinking at all about meeting in destinations anymore, or will you have multiple smaller meetings throughout regions?
So it's actually a very good question, because we are still working, of course, on the multiple scenarios for the future, and I don't have a definite answer for you at this point. But one of the things that we have realized is that when we had in-person regional meetings in the past, we would have a room filled with, 50, 100 really passionate people that were there for 2 or 3 days in a row. Now we have moved these over virtual meetings, and we end up with 300 or 400 people that are there, and not necessarily always the same people. because going in a virtual format allows us to avoid putting people on planes and sending them to a city. And of course, we had always had issues with, dealing with visas, dealing with room blocks, and so on. And we can really move that aside, which is great. On the flip side, though, because that's really positive, because we see more people, we have new volunteers, we have a lot of enthusiasm, which is great. But on the flip side, everybody's seeing what is recalled as meeting or virtual meeting fatigue. We are still finding it extremely difficult to deal with the 19 time zones. And even though once in a while it's not too bad if I get up at midnight to have a meeting, if I'm the volunteer in New Zealand, that every single meeting is either at 4 a.m. or at midnight, I'm probably not super enthused about having the opportunity or the future perspective of having only virtual meetings. So what we are assessing right now is to move forward in the future with a hybrid approach, where we are going to have when of course we can start to travel safely in the future, we hope we will be able to bring people back in one room, because there's a definite appetite to seeing people face to face, to be able to network, to be able to meet individuals and establish those long-lasting business relationships that we are going to be able to leverage for years and years to come. But at the same time, we absolutely value the fact that we can use better virtual meeting formats to be able to get some of the individuals that probably never had the financial capacity to fly over to some of our meetings, or never had the time due to their regular day job, or had so much to do that just couldn't make it, or visa issues and so on. So that's going to be the challenge for, I guess, pretty much everybody in the industry in the next future years. I've heard some associations say they're only going to go virtual, and maybe that works for them, but that's not where we want to go in the future. We really want to be able to have a part of our meetings that is still going to be in person, to have those established, to really help with all these, but also open the door for virtual meetings, which will make things tough, because we are still going to need to be able to deal with the time zones while we have some people in the room. And there's always a disconnect, as you know, when you have people in the room and you have AV and so on. And so it's going to be a whole different way of managing those events in the future. But hey, we like challenges, don't we?
We do, and you couldn't have set it up better for us to really encourage people to join us as part of the ICA Congress, which is 6 weeks long, where we are really discussing those challenges and issues and discussing what the future of events will look like. And it's a perfect opportunity for associations like yourself to really look and discuss with destinations, how are we going to do this in future? Will destinations partner up and bid for your events in future to provide those hub and hybrid models? So as part of the Incredible Impacts program, we have also given all submissions one registration. So I hope you or one of your team will be able to join us as well. But before we finish, I do want one last question from you answered, if possible. Why is it important for associations to really consider the impact in a destination locally within a community? Why is it important to have this as part of their strategy from the outset before they even go to a destination?
Well, I think especially for us being a worldwide organization, we tend to rotate to be able to cover all the globe. And of course, we're not going to be able to cover every single country. So we have to be mindful of travel costs. We have to be mindful of ease of access to some of these destinations. And at the end of the day, it is also where we either want to grow, or if each organization has a different strategy or strategic objectives that they may or may not associate with different parts of the world. For us, it's always very important to be able to hit what we call, we really split the globe in three, which is Asia, Pacific, Europe, Africa, and the Americas. And for us, it's really important on a rotation basis to be able to hit all three. And for us, if it was just for us, it would be easier to bring the world every single year or 2 years to Ottawa. Our office is here. It's a beautiful place. But at the end of the day, it's not about just where the office is located. It's about where your volunteers are. It's about where as an organization, in our case, we're trying to grow the worldwide profession of actuaries, and there's parts of the world that are growing extremely rapidly and need different level of support. That's always one of our main targets and main preoccupation, to be able to go where basically we are more needed if possible, and then of course you have to balance all the, like I said, the cost, the cities, and so on. So there's only so much that you can do when you're virtual. And I'm going to end up on this note, because it's one of my personal recommendations to everybody that's listening. You may have noticed in the back, my background, it's actually not a background, it's real papers that are done by my kids. We recommend, whenever possible, to not use fake backgrounds, because it really helps have a little bit more of a personal touch, personal feeling to the people that you are listening to. And people that I've never met now sometimes send me a note or email saying, oh, by the way, like, I love your kids' drawings. And that's a really nice way to be able to open up or start a conversation, which I always so important when you're dealing with travel destinations and so on. That is one little nugget that I do recommend going forward for anybody listening.
Thank you so much. And what a lovely way to end this. The most important part, especially in this online and virtual world, is really the human connection and the emotional story. Thank you so much, Mathieu, for joining us. And I hope all will go well for you and the further development of the association, and that you will be able to connect with many of your peers and our ICA member destinations throughout the coming weeks. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for joining.
Bye-bye.